Okay, this is video 1, and I'm going to highly suggest that you watch this whole video regardless of whether your work is in this video, because there will be some things that I mentioned in here that I will not go into specifics in the next videos because I have already covered them. So let's get started. All right, so I like the contrasting typefaces that you have here. It makes it kind of visually interesting there, and I like how you've created a grid. I will mention, this is for everybody too, that in InDesign they give you that pink margin. So we are creating these advertisements for print. They will be printed around the same size as a magazine, so all of your typography choices need to be representative of that. So like in this ad, there's a lot of copy that needs to follow those type size guidelines for the appropriate type of typeface that you're using. Those pink lines are lines that help us to avoid having information that would get cut off if it's too close to the edge. So everything that's not in that pink line is at risk of being cut off. Right now you have this information across the top that is a little bit hard to read in some areas and is going to get cut off. So I would suggest knocking that, moving that down, and then making sure it's legible. Now, if you can't make it legible up there, then you can look at moving it. And this picture is really interesting, but it does have a lot of extra legibility challenges for you. So you could go into Photoshop and you could edit the picture so that there are some spaces where you can put the text over the top. So if you use the burn tool and kind of burn in some of this area, or just find a picture that doesn't have quite as many light and dark values at the same time. That's what gets complicated. But past this information, I see 1, 2, and then 3. But some of this is really important stuff. It's getting a little bit lost down there, so I would make an adjustment there. Okay, so with this, we have a really very vivid picture that is distorted. So I happen to be pretty familiar with Easter eggs, and this is a distorted version. So you want to make sure that you review the video on image placement. Make sure this is print resolution as well, and this is just for everybody. They do need to be that effective PPI of 300 at the size that you use it. We have that same margin issue, and that's more on the sides of this one. So I'll draw ish where the margins are, so some of this stuff would be cut off. Now this is hard to read on this part, and there's a few reasons for that. One is you have a lot of light tones and dark tones, but that's hard to account for. Another is that it's all caps. So your whole ad is in all caps, and all caps is the hardest to read. So you'll want to make sure that you edit that so that you can have better legibility. Now, a couple of ways you could do that. One is you could have a white box that's in the middle here and put all of your text inside this, because we don't actually have any detail that we must see in this image. It's all kind of there for nuance. So if you have a white box here and then you put your text inside, that might help. I like that you're using right alignment, but it is also confusing that we have these strongly center aligned things corresponding with that, so you'll need to do some adjusting to make sure that it looks cohesive. Last thing I'll mention is when we have this ampersand in the middle, all of this space here on either side is trapped white space. So if you look at some of the other examples in here, you might see other ways to stack your text so that you don't have that same legibility issue. Okay, so I think you're the only person in both classes who chose to do this one, which is pretty fun. And I will just mention, I mentioned it in the first video, but text size is going to be really important here for you. A lot of this is really large, and it makes it look more like a poster than a print advertisement as far as something that goes inside a magazine. And when we use a tool like this, what it usually says is it's hard to read over the top of this, so we're going to stick this on here and make it easier to read, and that's how it appears here. So if that is a problem for you, you can go in and edit this image so that maybe the flower doesn't come up as high and you don't have that same legibility issue there. And so watch your visual hierarchy when you start to make those adjustments, but I really like the picture that you've chosen, and I think it's definitely a classier version of this advertisement. Okay, so I think this is really cool how you've layered this. And my only thing, and I'm just going to say it, and if you decide not to make the adjustment, then I totally get that, because I do like how this looks, is that it doesn't look like a professional floral arrangement for any of the things that you have set right beside it. So weddings, receptions, graduation, funeral, corporate, like this looks like something somebody picked out of the yard. So conceptually that's not matching. Now overall, is it a significant improvement? Absolutely. And if you decide to keep it for that reason, I can totally see that, but it does bear saying. It's worth saying. The other thing is we're missing some text here. So all of the text, this is for everybody, all of the text from the original ads does need to appear in the final. So I think there's something in here that says something something for all occasions. So you will want to make sure that that is included inside your final advertisement, that you haven't left anything behind. Okay, so another one with some layering, which I think again is really cool. This looks a little bit more like a bouquet that you might have for those. It could help potentially to have like a little bit of the flower if this is an illustration that you made, like the wrapping that would have it, but if you don't, that's also fine. So we have Feel Good and then Flower Shop. Some of our text is a little white here. I'm not sure where that's coming from. We do have that same margin issue in this ad, so you want to make sure that all of your text and important imagery is inside that margin for you, and some of the text size might be adjusted. You have these big, thick, bright lines. I don't think you need them, and what they're doing right now is actually creating some trapped white space for you inside your title there. And then we have all of this space that's not being used yet. So I think you could potentially break some of this up. So maybe your all occasions go here, and then you have some more space for that. Make sure you look at the guidelines for text sizes as well.